However strong one becomes, we always have moments where we need some support. Someone who tells us they have our back no matter what comes. Let's look at a few of such moments in the lives of NBA players. Bill Russell and Adam Silver. Long before he was running the NBA, Adam Silver was an eager young staffer whose duties included opening mail, writing memos, and carrying around large stacks of glossy Bill Russell photos, all of it important, none of it as gratifying as the last bit. Russell, of course, was famously reluctant to sign autographs, preferring a conversation or a handshake to a scribbled signature as a means to connect with people. But for the fan who required something tangible, there were the glossy photos, and Silver, in his role as a special assistant to the commissioner in the early 1990s, had the job of navigating those moments. To the NBA commissioner, Russell was more than just the game's greatest champion. He was also a close confidant and friend. Russell, who died on July 31st at age 88, was buried recently in a private ceremony in Seattle. Silver gave a eulogy. To the basketball world, Russell was a towering icon, its greatest winner, its greatest champion, and its fiercest advocate for civil rights. But to Silver, Russell was all of that certainly, but also a close and trusted friend, a confidant, and a sounding board going back to those days traveling the country in the early 1990s when the two spent countless hours together. I was so green and eager to hear his stories because he was one of the all-time great storytellers, Silver says. He had a profound influence on me. It's common for commissioners in each of the major sports leagues to mingle with the living legends of their games at Hall of Fame ceremonies and All-Star games, and perhaps even to seek their counsel. But it's rare that those moments beget a true friendship, or as Silver calls his bond with Russell, a special relationship that transcends the duties of the job. That's what evolved over the last 3 decades as Silver rose from special assistant to Commissioner David Stern's chief of staff to president of NBA Entertainment to deputy commissioner and finally to his current role in 2014. They shared long flights and limo rides, took in all-star games and finals together, and spoke frequently by phone or text. Silver often sought Russell's counsel on major issues, especially when the league was confronted with challenges that went beyond the court. Silver immediately says yes when asked whether there were specific moments when Russell's voice was key, though he prefers not to divulge the details. Silver often referred to Russell as the NBA's Babe Ruth, except because of the NBA's relative youth as a league, this Babe Ruth still walked among his modern-day descendants, providing a wealth of perspective and advice. Russell's unparalleled success, 11 championships with the Celtics and 5 MVP awards, made him one of the sport's most revered legends. His unwavering activism in the 1960s in the face of an often extreme backlash made him one of the most admired and a role model for today's stars. He's sort of the founding father of the modern NBA, Silver says. And with that, I think he became the league's DNA for our players to feel comfortable speaking out on societal issues. I would say a lot of the courage of the modern-day players, there's a direct through line to Bill against the whole shut up and dribble crowd. When the NFL's Colin Kaepernick and other players were vilified for kneeling during the national anthem as a protest against police brutality, Russell backed them on Twitter with a photo of himself on one knee. Over the years, Silver delighted in seeing younger players meet Russell, hear his stories and soak in his experiences about championships and personal sacrifice, about the formation of the Players Association, about the challenges of being a black athlete in his era, about his decision to speak out. Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Curry was baby-faced and understated, while Green was hot-tempered and loud. Curry, the son of an NBA player, grew up in an affluent neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina, while Green was raised below the poverty line by a single mother for much of his youth in Saginaw, Michigan. Curry was offensive-minded, while Green was a grinded-out defender. But it didn't take long for them to realize that their differences were wildly complementary. If there were two me's, it might not be as loud in the locker room as it needs to be at times, said Curry, now in his 13th season with Golden State. And if there were two of him, nobody would know when to shut up. It's the perfect balance. It's rare for superstars to stay together for a decade without fracturing, especially under the intense microscope of 5 straight NBA Finals appearances and 3 championships. Usually, egos collide and the situation becomes untenable, but Curry and Green have survived every challenge. Together, along with Klay Thompson, they're the longest tenured trio in the NBA. Even when they missed the playoffs the past 2 seasons while Thompson was sidelined with ACL and Achilles injuries, Curry and Green leaned on each other instead of pointing fingers. They'd constantly talk on airplanes, in corners of gyms, and in the locker room about how to turn things around. They both attribute the team's turnaround to the same thing: their deep love and appreciation for each other. Their relationship developed slowly. Green likened it to peeling an onion. The more he learned about Curry, the more he started trusting him. For Green, the defining moment in their friendship came in November 2018, after he unleashed a verbal tirade at then-teammate Kevin Durant during a game in Los Angeles against the Clippers. Durant barked at Green for not passing him the ball for a potential game-winning shot, and Green responded by cursing at Durant and saying he was going to leave in free agency, so he didn't matter. Cameras caught much of the ugly exchange, which continued in the locker room after the game. Green was suspended for 1 game without pay by the Warriors, and many questioned whether this incident would blow up their season. When the team returned to Oakland, Curry, who had remained in the Bay Area to rehabilitate a strained groin, met Green at his house. They talked for 2 hours. Curry stayed so long that he missed his pre-game nap and had to go straight to the arena. It was a tense time for Green. He was waiting to hear if the Warriors were going to suspend him, a move some thought would signal that the team's brass was taking Durant's side. Having Curry show up at his house really meant something to Green. Curry eventually had a conversation with Durant as well, and is widely credited for helping the team get past the incident. "Everyone's going to have their opinion on something, and that's totally fine," Green said. "But when it all boils down to, do I have your back or do I not, that's the most important thing. Just to know I'm going to come sit here with you for 2 hours, and we're going to talk through this, figure out what happens next. I'm going to tell you how I feel, you tell me how you feel, and we'll go from there. But to ultimately know, regardless, we've got your back, and we're with you no matter what." I think that for me, that was huge in that moment because you don't know. You can believe what you want, but the only way you know is to get that from someone, and he's never wavered from that. Not for 1 second. Curry said his decision to go to Green's house was a no-brainer. He called it the right thing to do. The entire sports world was talking about this incident, and he knew his friend was distraught. Amid the turmoil, Curry wanted to be by Green's side. Similarly for Curry, there have been several watershed moments throughout their friendship that stand out to him. There was the time Curry's wife, Aisha, threw him a surprise 30th birthday party, and Green pulled him aside for a moment alone. In a quiet space away from the large crowd and blaring music, Green handed Curry a package. It contained 5 select wines and a note in which Green detailed how much he respects Curry as a man, husband, and father. It deeply touched Curry. Until that moment, it was well established how much they meant to each other on the court, and it was obvious that their relationship extended beyond the game, but having that sentiment concretely expressed felt different. Green's feistiness has long been celebrated by the Warriors. He's known as the heart and soul of the team. When his teammates see him sacrificing his body and diving for every loose ball, how can they not give 100% too? And if someone lacks focus, Green is the one who will deliver a stirring speech. 10 years together is an eternity in NBA time. Steph Curry and Draymond Green have been on countless trips, shared so many meals, so many laughs, so many tears. They've gone on to battle with each other on the court and supported each other off of it. They've won and they've lost. They've been atop the league and in its cellar. They've watched each other grow from 20-something-year-olds into mature family men. And through it all, they've been each other's greatest advocates. If not, it doesn't go 10 years, Green said. It just doesn't.